Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Star Wars Stuff Podcast, where we talk all things Star Wars. My name is Colin,
I'm Ray.
and we're here to talk about
Kidneys.
why.
I literally just say the first thing that comes to my head.
Right, but why was kidneys the first?
I'm not going to attempt to explain what goes on up here.
Okay.
It would probably scare you.
Okay. Anyways, we're here to talk about Star Wars. For news this week, we have Natalie Portman wants to come back.
I'm so excited.
Does that mean that Keira Knightley wants to come back?
Well, considering the fact that she doesn't remember who she played, but maybe they could get her to come back.
There you go. And then we have the I guess it's the official lineup, but also potential lineup for 2024. And then we also have news about Andor being pushed back and more. Let's start with Padme.
Yeah.
What's going on with that?
Natalie Portman said she's open to returning. And I'm like, Lucasfilm, take her up on that. We all need it.
Yeah.
Because the hard part is trying to figure out when they would have her, because it would have to be a flashback.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm wondering if it would be just like a little cameo style thing. But yeah, it's kind of hard to think what the scene would be or the storyline that would call for a flashback to Padme.
Right. Well, if they end up doing a Darth Vader series, which I know there's the running meme of that the entire
Prequels are
of the original trilogy and all that is pretty much like the Darth Vader story. But if they did a Darth Vader show where it shows Darth Vader in his prime, I could see her popping up in different images of where he's going full dark side, he's about to do something super bad, and then all of a sudden he just sees Padme just kind of standing there.
You could, if they do a Darth Vader series, I really want them to do the 2020 Vader comic, because that is kind of Vader in his prime. It takes place right after Luke finds out that Vader's his dad, because that's when he teams up with Sabe.
Yeah.
And he has some flashbacks to Padme. So if you get Sabe in there, you can have your Padme flashbacks. And maybe you get Natalie Portman to play. Well, it'd kind of be hard to have her play Sabe because, I mean, you'll have the visual similarities, but it would have to be all deep fake.
Yeah.
So that, I mean,
yeah.
I don't know if they want to do an entire series of just deep fake.
So when you go to conventions and you're not wearing Sabe, are people like, "Oh, you're the Sabe person," or are they like, "How come you're not wearing that giant croissant on your head?"
Not here, but I had that a little bit at Celebration, actually.
Okay.
So the people I roomed with, it was my first time meeting them in person, but we had been friends online for a couple years. And my friend Sammy said, when I told somebody who I was rooming with, they're like, "Oh, you're rooming with the pretty Sabe?" I'm like, is that my legacy? Is that what I'm known as? Is the pretty Sabe?
Is that your legacy? Okay.
I'll take it. I'll take it. If that's the marker I left on the internet, I'll take it. But and then when walking around in my Commander Sabe at Celebration, I would have people come up to me and like, "Oh my gosh, I recognize you from TikTok."
Yeah.
And that was such a weird experience because I'm like, I don't know who you are and you recognize me. That's just such a weird thing.
So super funny. It actually happened yesterday, and I texted David and James this. I was at the grocery store. I had less items than the person in front of me. They had a bunch of items, and I was just wearing a Star Wars shirt. I wasn't wearing a Star Wars Stuff podcast shirt or anything like that. And the person was like, "Hey, go ahead," like, and in front of me. I'm like, "Oh, cool." I was like, "Thank you so much." And then the person's like, "The only reason why that I'm letting you go in front of me is because I love your podcast. Keep it up." And I just stood there and I was like, I'm not even wearing a, but, and when those things happen, I'm just like, oh, okay. Like, and that would happen to me at Galaxy's Edge too,
Yeah.
where I would be working and I thought a guest would be walking up to me of like a question about the land, and then all of a sudden they would be like, you know, congratulations on just getting married and all, and we are so happy for you, keep it up. And I was just like, what? And then my boss would be like, what just happened?
What are you doing?
Yeah, and then they would take a selfie and you're just like, oh, okay. Yeah, I was like, that's not canon, but that's okay. But yeah, no, so it's when those things happen, it's a very cool experience, but also it's a very I feel very blessed to be part of this, to be part of a great community like this. And when you do get recognized, it is, you know, to me it is nice because it's like we are getting that appreciation for just, you know, of being nerds and stuff. And we have a couple of mics in front of us. But to me, it's just like, it's nice.
Yeah, it's just a wild experience. Like, I was talking with my friend Michelle. She sent me a screenshot of a coin listing for like people to buy like coins in bulk.
Yeah.
And she said, LOL at your podcast being in a coin lot. So somebody sold a lot of coins and they had our podcast coin in there.
Way.
And I was like, sometimes I just forget that people I have never met have stuff that I created.
Yes. And that's so cool.
Because like I made the art for that.
Yeah.
And it's weird to think about because I am doing a lot of designs for different Rebel Legion groups.
Yeah.
And so I designed the 15th anniversary Rebel Legion Galactic Senate merch. And to think that Hayden Christensen has a patch of that.
Oh, cool. I didn't know that.
Blows my mind. He has my patch.
Yeah.
That's just so weird to think about. People I've never met have my stuff, but then at the same time, it's like, well, of course.
Yeah.
You're making merch. Of course, people you don't know have your stuff.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah. But going back to Natalie Portman, I would really want to explore her story more, and maybe more flashbacks and stuff like that. And if you did like I honestly, I've never read the books, but if they did a handmaiden series from the books and maybe they did some type of adaptation where it was some of the same stories and they adapted it into it, or they ended up like having the same characters, but then they would just kind of put it into a different story, I would be fine with that.
Yeah,
because I think a lot of people would be interested in
I think there's a lot of story potential with the handmaidens.
Yeah.
Just because they're each very unique and have their own backstory and their own skill set that they bring to being a handmaiden. And Padme was the first one to have handmaidens in this sort of capacity, working as doubles and bodyguards. And so, or at least to have like so many. And I just think that exploring them would be like, you've got so much potential there.
Yeah.
For so much content. And all we get is 3 books? No, I want more. I mean, I love those books, but more content, please.
You had the perfect opportunity to do the line from Revenge of the Sith of where Anakin's like, I want more, but I know I shouldn't.
I want more.
No, it's
and
too
I
late
know
now.
I should.
No. Oh man.
No, but I will fully petition to be young Sabe.
Huh? Okay. All right. And I will petition to be any version of Max Rebo. So just hit me up, Lucasfilm. Let's go.
Please. Anyway.
we have the lineup for 2024. And as of right now, it's going to be Acolyte, Tales of the Jedi Season 2, Bad Batch Season 3, and Skeleton Crew. And then the game, if it's still happening, Star Wars Outlaws. It's still happening, but like maybe not this year because they've dropped the trailer and everything. It was supposed to come out 2024, but things happened, so now it may be pushed back. So I'm not saying that as part of the official lineup, but that's potential. With Andor, it kind of follows into the line of it was supposed to come out this year, but now it's coming out in 2025, which is interesting because they actually did a lot of filming. Like, and I thought they were almost done, and I think they were filming during the strike, right?
They did for a little bit.
Yeah.
I know they were filming during the writer's strike for a little bit.
Yeah.
It was them and Deadpool. But I think as soon as the actors went on strike, they stopped.
Right. Okay.
I could be wrong about that though. I know they were filming when there was a strike happening.
Yeah. And the difference between all these new Star Wars shows coming out as well is you've got Skeleton Crew, which kind of has that unknown kind of storyline of what's going to happen with it. And then with Acolyte as well, where that show would just keep continuing because it takes place during the High Republic era. But with Andor, we know exactly where the show is going to end because it leads into Rogue One. And I still think that show is going to be probably better than the first season, which is kind of hard to comprehend because the first season was so amazing and there were so many great characters. There were so many great moments in that show. So I can't even fathom of what's going to happen in season 2, like of the different plot twists, because again, we know where it's going to end up. And I just can't wait till we see can't wait to see Alan Tudyk come back as K2SO, which is going to be great because he had so many great one-liners in Rogue One. I'm so excited.
I thought they had said originally that he wasn't going to be in it.
Season 1.
Oh, okay.
Season 1. Because in season 2 there will be some time jumps of where it will kind of lead directly after season 1, and then it'll be like a year or two time jump, and then keep going forward from there. So kind of like what we got in the new if you're a fan of Game of Thrones, I'm so sorry. But the prequel show to Game of Thrones, House of Dragons, there's a lot of time jumps in that. Okay. So it may be similar to that. And then the show will lead up of going into Rogue One. And then you got Acolyte, which I'm very, very excited for.
Yes.
Because I've been rereading the High Republic books, and I was kind of, it's not that I was skeptical, but it was just like, that's a whole new era of Star Wars that's got a lot going on with it, and it's been going on since 2020. So I was kind of intrigued, but then as soon as I listened to the first book, I was like, this is great. And I'm listening to the second one. It's fantastic. Now, if you're getting into the High Republic books, I will tell you that think of it like the Clone Wars, where they would do episodes, but then it was not in chronological order. So then you had to go back to so if you wanted to watch the Clone Wars, you would have to start in chronological order. So you would have to start with like season 2, episode 16, go and then go to season 1, episode like 15, and then you watch the Clone Wars movie. And with the High Republic, it goes out in phases. So if you want to read the books in chronological order, it may be confusing because it's not labeled like 1, 2, 3, 4. It's like, here's this one, and then here's this one, but this one takes place 150 years before the Light of the Jedi. And you're like, oh, okay, I don't know what's going on. That's my big thing, was I really had to do research to see what the actual next book was, because they are they've done the High Republic in 3 phases. And the 3rd phase is the final phase of the novels. My guess is that it would continue still going in comics and everything, but my guess is that the show is that the books will end up leading into the Acolyte show, and then going forward. And that's not the only High Republic kind of screen project they got, because the other one is Star Wars Eclipse, which is kind of like an open world game that was supposed to come out in 2026, but now might come out in 2028. There's still not an official release date, but that is still in the works. And I will always watch that trailer because that trailer is fantastic.
2028. That sounds like a fake year.
I know.
That's not a real year.
But yeah, so if you want to get into the High Republic books and you're not sure where to start, I would start with The Light of the Jedi. But for me, I'm gonna do a video here soon to kind of help people understand of where to officially start. I've seen 20-minute videos, 15-minute videos of just kind of explaining everything, but in my mind, I like to know answers right away of being like, hey, where do I actually start? So I'm just gonna do a quick video being like, start with this book and then work your way down for chronological purposes. Now, if you just want to listen or read the books the way that they came out in release order, that's kind of how they intended the books to come out, just like Star Wars, of where they had 4, 5, and 6, and 1, 2, and 3. You could do it that way, but I would always start with Light of the Jedi, and that's what a lot of people would tell you. But if you're trying to get into it and prepare yourself for Acolyte, I highly recommend it, because I got a feeling that there's going to be a lot of characters from the books in that show, and they've already announced there is going to be. So I would definitely check that out. But yeah.
Nice.
High Republic.
Woo! Reading.
Yeah. Oh.
So for Tales of the Jedi Season 2, do we know what characters?
I want Balin.
I want Balin.
I
so
really,
bad.
really want Balin. I would love to maybe see him as a Padawan learner, and then maybe we jump to him during Order 66 and we see him survive and then kind of flee, and then maybe the end of that episode is or that episode is just his journey of meeting Shin, and then that would lead up to the Ahsoka series.
Yeah.
I think that would be very cool. I think fans would love it. And Ray Stevenson is an incredible actor, and no one can ever replace him. In my eyes, because he just crushed that role in such a fantastic way. And that's actually not his first time that he was in Star Wars, by the way.
What else was he?
He played Gar Saxon. That character is a Mandalorian in the Clone Wars, but mainly known in Star Wars Rebels. He was in season 7 of Clone Wars, where he was the main Mandalorian. So he was one of the Mandalorians that followed Darth Maul, and he had the horns on his head.
Okay.
And then later, after the Clone Wars ended, he joined the Empire, and he was trying to be the main ruler of the Empire, and he was part of House Vizsla. But I didn't really know that until a year ago, and I was like, oh, it's connected. Well, not connected, but the actor has played 2 roles, so I thought that was really cool. But yeah, and man, there's so much potential with Balin, so I'm really curious of where they're gonna end up going with that.
Not to derail this, but that's what I do. Isn't Padawan learner a double entendre?
Okay, apprentice?
No, but Padawan.
Yeah.
That's like an apprentice. The whole point is you're learning.
I have heard
student learner.
Okay, I have heard the term.
No, I know.
Oh, okay.
I know.
All right. I was like,
don't
you dare criticize me.
I've heard it. I find it's repetitive. It's student learner. That's kind of the same thing.
Okay.
So, I don't understand why that's a phrase.
Well, then you go talk to them.
Oh, I would love to.
Yeah.
Because I got some ideas.
I think we all do. Yeah, no, I would love for them to dive deeper into the lore of Balin because he is a very interesting character.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And if Max Rebo makes a cameo in there, so be it. So be it. I won't be heartbroken. Maybe a couple of people will be like, "What is this on my screen? Why?" But I'll be okay.
If Max Rebo comes back, I am going to wonder what magic spell or like witchcraft you concocted to get somebody at Lucasfilm.
I don't think I'm the only. So here's the thing, though. It's really funny. Is that whenever I do my campaigning for Max Rebo, people assume I'm like one of the only people that love Max Rebo, but there are a lot of Max Rebo fans out there, like a lot of them. And
I don't doubt it.
Yeah, and I just remember going to Star Wars Celebration London, and there were a couple of Max Rebo fans there, and one person was like, "I'm not the only one," and I'm like, "Yeah, let's go."
You're not the only one, but I feel like you're the one that campaigns the hardest for Max Rebo.
He's such a great character.
I mean, that's fair. But I'm not saying it's a bad thing.
So, of what you're saying is true. From a certain point of view. Yeah. I need that on a t-shirt.
I can make that happen.
Yeah. Oh, man. Yeah. And then we've got season 3 of The Bad Batch. And it's going to be the last season. It's going to be wild because of the trailer that they showed at Star Wars Celebration London. They haven't showed anyone yet. So I am excited for the world to see that trailer, and I'm really excited for season 3 of The Bad Batch. I know a lot of people on our and our podcast family are very excited but sad as well. And they've been campaigning for Delta Squad to come into it as much as I've been doing like of the Max Rebo stuff. So and if you love The Bad Batch and love the Clone Wars, check out our Patreon because we have a lot of great content on there where we just kind of do the Clone Wars commentary. We like break it down and we talk about a bunch of the behind the scenes and some things that, you know, that maybe isn't like fully main public knowledge of, where it's just like some fun facts behind the scenes, and then we give our costume input and stuff like that. And Josh likes to talk about the lighting, so definitely check it out on our Patreon. But yeah, I am definitely excited for season 3 of The Bad Batch. Yeah,
I didn't even finish season 2.
I know.
It felt like every episode was a filler. Well, the ones that I saw.
I just don't like using that term, but I understand where you're coming from.
It felt like the episodes didn't like further the plot.
Yeah.
Because that's, at least comparing it with season 1, that's kind of the way the show is each episode is to drive the plot forward. But it felt closer to a Doctor Who where each episode is its own adventure. And it felt like disjointed.
I mean, I'm okay with that. I just know that that's not for everyone. So I do understand of where you're coming from.
I think if season 1 had been each episode is its own adventure kind of thing, then season 2 would have made more sense. I think the switch is what kind of got me feeling bleh.
Some people like that continuous continuous plot of a show of where it's like it's happening every episode. That's what Ahsoka was. I personally didn't feel that there was really any filler episodes like in that show, but then you jump to Mandalorian where it is like the plot is going, there is some side missions, and then the plot is going. And with the Doctor Who aspect of it, I'm okay if like each episode feels like its own adventure, as long as we get back to the plot like near the end of the show and where there's like small connections.
Yeah.
Because those side missions to me really help build those characters. and with so many characters in that show, there's so much character development to be built up. So I am very excited to see what they do with season 3, because we don't know really what happens with these characters in the canon timeline. We have no idea. These characters really didn't exist in Legends except in a episode arc that was never aired, but then they did an edit on it for season 7 of the Clone Wars, of where they introduced the Bad Batch. So I'm really curious of how they're going to end their journeys. Who else may not make it, because I don't think Tech's gone. I mean, I'm assuming you heard about Tech. Yeah. So
also, he was my favorite. So, why bother? Why bother keeping on when you lose your favorite?
Yeah.
Me at Marvel.
And because of Scarlet Witch. I don't think Loki. Okay, I don't want to get into that. But
no, because following a character's arc for 12 years, and analyzing all of the growth and all this stuff, it's very emotional. So let's not crack open that can of worms, because this will turn into a Loki analysis podcast.
You mentioned Loki. That wasn't me. But yeah, I'm very excited to see where season 3 of the Bad Batch goes. And then you got Skeleton Crew. I'm so excited for that, because that show is going to be going into a very old vibe, because it sounds like they're going to be using practical effects, and the trailer that they showed at Celebration was a very Amblin Studio vibe. So it felt like E.T., it felt like the Goonies, but with Star Wars. And
nice.
I was really campaigning to hoping that show would feel like me waking up on a Saturday morning and popping a old VHS and into the VCR and just watching something from the 80s. And it sounds like that is what the show is going to be. Hello, Matt Skywalker, all the way from Australia. Hello. But yeah, so I'm I'm very excited for that show. And there's also a kid, Ortolan.
Yes. Is that the name that we got?
That's the species.
No, because there's a name reveal.
Yes.
Is that the name? Is it that character's name?
I am about to grab the reveal of the name.
Drum roll, please. It
sounds like you're trying to do the Patrick Star impression of where he goes, "Little, little, little, little."
No.
Yes. So
wait, is it seriously?
So the name is Neil.
Neil.
Neel, and that's the name of the Hortolan species. Neil. We have a name. Neil. That is Max Rebo's nephew.
Well, okay, so here's the
thing. Please have a connection. That would be so cool.
Here's my thing. This kid's name is Neil. Neel.
Yeah.
That's very unique and like sci-fi-ish.
Well, it could be pronounced Neil.
If it's 2 E's, where are you getting the A? Okay. But so you have this sci-fi name and then Max.
But Rebo.
Rebo's a last name. His name is Max.
You got Luke.
I know, but like he's a human. The humans tend to have pretty human names.
I don't. You can't put logic into Star Wars. We have established lists on all of our platforms.
Because
can't do that.
It feels very Treasure Island, where all of the pirates have really cool pirate names, and then I think there's like this one guy named Dave. It's like It's like
it happens.
All these cool sci-fi names, and then there's Max. Hi, Max.
There's nothing wrong with Max.
No,
I like that name. I probably wouldn't name my child Max, but
I just feel like they're either going to have really unique names or really like basic English names. I'm thrown for a loop by that one.
Neil or Niel.
I don't know that I like Neel if it's pronounced Neil. I don't know. It's weird to me.
I don't think there's any pre-pronunciation yet.
Well, no, I know. But if it's pronounced Neil. I want
What's up, Neil?
I want an I or a K in there.
I would be so happy if he ended up having some type of relation to Max Rebo.
Now, where in the timeline is Skeleton Crew?
It's during the period of the Mandalorian.
Okay.
Because we know the pirate Vane from Mandalorian season 3 is going to be showing up in it.
I will never not find that funny.
Vane. Yeah.
But so he could be like a nephew or son.
Son, I don't think so. Nephew, cousin, second cousin, I could see. But son,
we also don't know this character's gender. So who's to say? Because Neel is a made-up name. There's no tie-in a gender to that one.
I don't know. Either way, I'm excited.
Yeah.
Because we also know that he's got 2 arms and 2 legs.
Okay, here's another thing. Is this character going to look like OG Max Rebo? Or is he going to have funky shoulders?
He's animated. The actor was wearing a kind of motion capture suit. And the stuff that I saw, it did his shoulders look like this.
Okay, so they look like the Boba Fett one.
Yeah.
I've got to be honest, that one I'm not a huge fan of that one's design.
His face doesn't look like that, but his body looks like a normal body. Where his shoulders are normal, his legs are normal. It's nothing like this.
Yeah.
And and it makes me so happy. So
I mean, I'm excited. We're gonna see that species like moving around in the world because we don't know how Max Rebo like walks or anything. He could walk on all 4s. Who's to say?
No, we know how he walks, but people think that he walks on 2 on just his 2 limbs.
Well, I mean, there is that comic book that
from a certain point of view, that is true.
But have we seen him outside of his piano?
Not on screen.
In comics, though?
Comics, games, different cartoon adaptations. So you've
right, he was in the Lego Holiday Special.
Yep, he was in the Lego Holiday Special. He was in Robot Chicken.
He always has a diaper.
And then Star Wars Detours as well, which that was a show that never aired, but there were clips that made it online.
So does he always just have a diaper?
Pretty much.
I wonder what the clothing style is for that species. If like it's just diapers or.
Well, I feel like there's going to be a big conversation of when Skeleton Crew comes out, because if Neil is wearing clothes, that's basically going to tell the audience that Max Rebo wearing a diaper is a choice.
That was a decision.
Yeah.
Yeah, because either they don't really do a whole lot of clothing and it is a diaper,
right?
Or Max Rebo is playing shirtless.
I would love to explore more. I mean, I guarantee you that they'll talk more about his species, which was great because we've only seen it here and there. But getting a full description, maybe just having a tiny nod to the to species and kind of of what they're doing and what's going on would be very, very cool.
Yeah, I'm very intrigued by the clothing situation now.
Yeah, because I think I do remember him, like, of Neil wearing some type of like jacket or vest or something. So if that's the case, then Max Rebo wearing a diaper is a choice.
He's kind of like Mickey Mouse, because Mickey Mouse only wears pants, but then sometimes he's in a suit.
Yeah.
So it's like, Mickey, why are you running around without a shirt on?
I don't know.
That's a choice. Why are you making that choice?
I don't know. But
put a shirt on, Mickey.
Oh. Okay. Anyway, yeah. No, I am excited to see where Skeleton Crew goes. Yeah, man. And then I'm really hopeful that Outlaws does. That game still comes out. I would be disappointed if it didn't, but I would also understand. With Star Wars Celebration 2025, I'm expecting a bunch of announcements at that. That's also going to be the 20th anniversary of Revenge of the Sith. You bet your bantha that I will be at that 20th anniversary panel. I will be there 100%.
I need Bet Your Bantha on merch now. That's the name of the episode.
Yeah.
Bet Your Bantha.
Oh man. Yeah. No, I'm excited. I'm definitely excited for the future of Star Wars. There is a lot of things coming that we know about that we don't really know about, and it's that unknown mystery that excites me, because Star Wars to me has always been this very untapped potential of what can happen, because the whole galaxy of Star Wars is so broad and it's so expansive, and there's so much room and so many stories of possibilities. And I'm very excited to see of where we're going in the next couple of years, because you've got the new Rey sequel movie.
Yes.
That's being it sounds like they will start production in April of next year, which is a lot sooner than I thought it was going to be, but then it makes sense because of the strike is over and all that stuff. So
I'm really excited because in the Rey cosplay community, they're very sneaky, and like they've got like there's people in there that have ins, and they will find Rey's new outfit so fast, and they will find like the manufacturer of the fabric used.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what kind of level some Rey cosplayers are on, but they're intense, and they go like full like screen accurate down to like our friend Jenna. She tracked down the like vintage Austrian linen used for the gray vest she wears in The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're insane. Like, how do you do this? It is amazing.
Yeah.
So there's just I'm excited to see what things people will be sneaking.
Yeah.
And getting a hold of.
I really want Finn to be in that movie so bad.
I need just a little clip of Rey just like teaching a class, and it's panning across, and it's a bunch of like 5-year-olds, and then at the end of the pan, it's Finn trying his best to keep up.
Yeah.
With the 5-year-old.
I think, and that would be. Honestly, that movie will bring things full circle as well for what's happening in the Mandalorian timeline. They have the perfect opportunity to bring in Grogu if they wanted to. And I think that would also draw more people in to go see the movie, because let's face it, Grogu was a big selling point for the Mandalorian. So if you bring Grogu into this point of the timeline, that would also, say, hey, Grogu's safe, but where's the Mandalorian? Now, if you go to Doc Ondar's over at Galaxy's Edge, you can see Din Djarin's helmet and his rifle and the chainmail that he gives Grogu in the Book of Boba Fett on display over at Doc Ondar's Den of Antiquities. And that's canon.
Something happens before The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
Because Batuu takes place between The Last Jedi and
Rise of Skywalker. Yep. Yeah.
And yet they have Hera there.
That's a whole thing because of when they do that. So, for example, you've got Mando. He mainly walks around the marketplace, and you've got Boba and Fennec that do the same, and Hera does the same.
I forgot you can meet Boba and Fennec.
Yeah, but Fennec, Boba, and Hera and Chopper are all at Disneyland. And Mando too. But then if you go to Hollywood Studios, you've only got Din Djarin there, where he makes his rounds with Grogu. Basically, it's that area is in its own pocket dimension. So when you ask when you get these kind of questions and you go up to a resistance fighter, and you're like, so how come we can see Din Djarin and Grogu over there? Their response is, "Oh, that is just a random Mandalorian. We've heard the legends about them." So, and in their mind, that's not Din Djarin. That's just some random person.
That's just a random dude.
Yes. Yeah. So when you do see Din Djarin, that's like happening in its own pocket dimension. Okay. So that's not really happening in the timeline that Galaxy's Edge actually is, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, of that point in the timeline of during the sequel era. So when you see Din Djarin walking around, it's not like, oh, how come he wasn't in episode 9? It's just like that's happening during the Mandalorian timeline.
Yeah, I feel like they should keep, if they're gonna put a timeline on Batuu, they should stick to that timeline. And if they want to bring in other Star Wars characters, put them in Hollywood Studios.
I don't know.
Like you can meet Vader in Hollywood Studios.
Launch Bay. You can meet Chewie. Yeah, Chewie and Vader. And Ahsoka now is also at Disneyland as well. They actually have more like of those roaming characters at Disneyland more than
Disneyland gets everything. They get all the cool Star Wars characters. They have the Avengers campus.
You're preaching to the choir.
I
was there. Trust me,
I want it.
But yeah, no, that has definitely been a very hot topic through the Galaxy's Edge community, because some people say that Disney's Land's version of Galaxy's Edge is not as canon as the Disney World version of Galaxy's Edge.
What if you just made that to like each location, just different timelines?
I mean, I think that would bring more people in of being like, okay, I will go to Disneyland, but now I can experience something new. So I'll go to
because like
Hollywood Studios and I'll experience this part of the timeline.
Yeah, you go to Disneyland and you're in like the Book of Boba Fett, Mandalorian, Ahsoka timeline, and you go to Disney World and you're in the Rey, Kylo, Finn timeline.
There was a lot of potential with Galaxy's Edge, and I could see things changing, you know, within the next couple of years. I could definitely see them change the timeline and then maybe changing, you know, Rise of the Resistance up. Maybe that would be a lot of work. They
got to make it working first,
right? Because the big difference between Galaxy's Edge and Avengers Campus is the fact that to me, Avengers Campus is you're like showing up and the heroes in there and they're walking around. When you're in Galaxy's Edge, there's a huge storyline, right? There is a big canon storyline that they have to follow, but then you have, you know, those characters from the Mandalorian that show up and people feel like, well, that's contradicting of what you're trying to do. And that's why at Disney World over at Hollywood Studios, it's not as crazy as it is over at Disneyland, of where you do have those kind of timelines like kind of crossing over.
Yeah, because like in like Magic Kingdom, you can have like Snow White and Ariel and Jasmine together, but those are very different timelines.
Yeah.
So, but it works because
Yeah.
there's no set timeline to Magic Kingdom.
Right.
But there's a set timeline to Batuu.
While the other,
which is why it's unique.
The other thing was they had the Halcyon, which also was a big canon timeline thing over at Disney World. So to me, it made sense not to have those moments of where you did have people from the Halcyon walking around, and then, you know, seeing Din Djarin and Grogu was just like, oh, okay. Like, to me, that wasn't a big deal. But if you're walking around and you're seeing like Boba and Fennec and all those characters, and you're on the Halcyon, which is a specific sequel storyline, that would be contradicting the Halcyon in a big way. The Halcyon, unfortunately, is no longer around anymore. So who says that, you know, that they're not gonna start doing what Disneyland was doing, of where they had these characters from the Mandalorian timeline come in? Because to me, I think that was the big kind of shield that was blocking them from adding characters like Ahsoka and all that, just because the Halcyon. Because the whole point of the Halcyon was to immerse you in this big storyline and really immerse you into the world of Star Wars. And that's what Galaxy's Edge does. But with the Halcyon, it was more of, you really are in that world. Like, the theming on the Halcyon was incredible, and we do have some people from our podcast family that had the great opportunity to go on there, and they described it as a once in a lifetime experience. And I wish I would have gone, but at the same time, it's just like, you know, things didn't work out, unfortunately. But me working at Galaxy's Edge, I count that as like my kind of Halcyon experience, because to me, that was also a once in a lifetime opportunity. But yeah, no, I really would love for them to add more stuff into Galaxy's Edge, and maybe do things that they originally planned and do that now. Do you think it should stay in the sequel timeline, or do you think they should change it up?
I feel like because they'd have to do like almost a remodeling. I feel like if they were to change the timeline,
a big rebranding in a way.
Yeah. Like not physically like remodeling, but like a rebranding, because it's been set up in the sequels.
Yes.
So if you're going to change it, other things need to change to make it seem very different.
Yes, because I think when people think that, they're not thinking about how hard it's going to be to change up the story. For example, you've got the Millennium Falcon there. That's fine. But Hondo owns Onaka Transport Solutions, specifically around the sequel era. He does not own it during the Galactic Civil War. So you would have to rewrite that. You would have to take Hondo out of it just to make the timeline make sense. Unless you wanted to rewrite the canon, which when you do rewrite the canon in some situations, it can be very confusing to people.
Yes.
So that's why you have to be careful. And I understand why that they haven't done that yet. I personally love Smuggler's Run. I love Rise of the Resistance. Would it be great to, you know, maybe have the timeline happen during the original trilogy era? It would be cool. It would be great to see maybe Moff Gideon walking around, or Thrawn walking around, or Darth Vader. Or like even go back a tiny bit further. It would be really cool to have Han Solo and the originals, where you've got R2 and C3PO, you know, kind of doing their thing. It'd be cool. But you have to think how difficult it is to rewrite all that stuff and redo the land just to make it fit for the fans. So as much as I would want that, I think the sequel era works. I think it's a very unique part in the timeline. And with the new sequel movie coming out with Rey's story, they could definitely add more elements to it, because again, Star Wars is a very untapped potential franchise.
Mm-hmm.
There is so much that has been done, but there's so much that can be done.
Yeah.
And the only thing that you can really do with something like this is to keep moving forward, as Walt Disney has said. You know, as soon as you have a great idea, you keep going with it and you keep expanding on it, and you'll have something so magical that people won't be able to comprehend, because it's so amazing. So, and that's exactly what Galaxy's Edge is that it's just, there's so much to be done. There's so many possibilities. It's just a matter of time of when that's going to happen.
I think if you're going to change the timeline, I think what would be cool to do with Galaxy's Edge is if you just like make it like so much bigger, and then you can have like sections. So like this kind of like how there's different lands in Magic Kingdom, like Fantasyland and suddenly can't Frontierland.
Yes.
If you had like, this is like the prequel eras, you got like prequel characters hanging out here, and then like in the middle you've got the original trilogy characters, you got them hanging out around there, and then in that like what is now Galaxy's Edge, you've got the sequel characters hanging out. So you can have all of them, but like walking through the park is like walking through time.
No, I agree. And now you've got the Galactic Star Cruiser building, which is not being used.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows what they're going to turn that into? I personally would turn it into a other experience to where you can maybe hop on, a transport, and that transport would take you over to that building, and it could be a different Star Cruiser like that has new Star Wars adventures on there for you to explore, because there is a lot of room in that building, and there is a lot of stuff to do in there. So it's like, hey, what are we going to do with it? Now, the question to me is, what would we end up using that for? Like as fans going into it, what would you want to see with that building? Like of what kind of Star Wars experience would you want to see?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a hard question to answer.
Oh. And you have to remember, if you're doing that, it has to be in the canon timeline.
Yeah.
So it's got to be something with the sequel era.
That's why I think making like walking through the Star Wars timeline and like expanding that area of the park is an amazing way to go.
Mm-hmm.
You can have that idea for free, Disney.
But yeah, no, again, I am excited to see what they do. And I just remember the first time that I went, and the first thing that popped in my mind was like, if I was a kid and I like saw this experience as a kid, my life would be even more Star Wars inspired.
Yeah.
Because it's one thing to watch the films, but to experience something like that, especially at that age of where you're trying to figure out, who you are and what you want to do with your life. Star Wars is a very inspiring franchise, and there's a lot of people today that probably would not be where they are if they never watched Star Wars. So there's so much untapped potential, and I'm just excited to see where it goes.
If they bring other characters from like the original trilogy or prequels into the parks, they need to do better costumes, because oh my gosh, their Luke and Leia is awful.
From when? Oh, from Star Wars Weekends?
Well, no, because they recently had an event where you could meet like older characters. Like they had a meet and greet with Amidala.
Oh yeah, no,
it was awful.
They haven't used those costumes in a while, so they're most likely pulling them out of storage. Because during Star Wars Weekends, they had like Kit Fisto and which was so cool, by the way. So they had Kit Fisto, Darth Maul.
Those dance offs, I watched them so much. They're hilarious.
Yeah.
But yeah, they would definitely need an update on the costumes.
Yeah. I think their costumes are pretty great, but I think if they did some updates on some things, it wouldn't hurt. But yeah, absolutely. Star Wars. It's cool.
Is there anything else we had rattling around in there?
There's always so many more Star Wars ideas rattling on my head,
you
but
know.
we don't have enough time for that.
I'm talking like the news.
Oh, the news.
The news.
No, I think that's it.
You say as you check your computer.
Before we go, I wanted to thank our Patreon supporters.
Yes.
Because they do so much for us, and we love all of you. So we would like to thank Hayden H. Help me out, because
I can't read. Hayden H, Darth Ace 1, Liam M, Chris S, Kevin L, Devin M, Drew P, Zach N, Fenrir 526, Maya M, and Maka T.
Yep, there you go. Thank you so much for being part of a Patreon. We say it every week, but we want to be doing this if it wasn't for everyone on Patreon and all the fans that listen to us. So thank you so much. And we really enjoy just, talking about Star Wars. But to me, it's more, I'm so honored to do this stuff, because it's just like, we are just a couple of nerds. We just happen to have a couple of mics in front of us. So
we're just a couple of nerds.
We're
a couple of nerds screaming into mics. I know my letters.
Yeah. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, X, formerly known as Twitter, and all of social media platforms under Star Wars Stuff Podcast. That's how you can find us. We love you all. May the Force be with you.
Always. Ooh.